Hello and welcome back to the Mercedes-Benz Virtual Grand Prix 2018 season. We're across the Atlantic this time for the 8th round of the year and 4th and final round in the Mercedes-Benz C9. And of course, we're at the lovely Circuit of the Americas. My name is Justin, and joining me once again, it's Chris.
Always happy to be back in the box for VGP. We return to Justin's stomping ground for Circuit of the Americas in Austin, USA. Michael Schmidl, of course, still dominating the season, having won every single round and been pole everywhere so far. Speaking of which, there are the standings. Schmidl leading the way on $179 in the second plus in second. Blazek 3 in the Lenovo car in 89. Stavenko 4, Polesny 5, Schlebeck 6, Honzek 7, Secret 8, Zubik 9, Kostalik 10, Prohaska 11, and Lucas at the back of the field in the Sanders car in 12th.
And we'll take a look at some statistics. So Schmidl can become the champion if he wins, and Michael Blazek finishes 5th or worse, and Peter Dolezal finishes 8th or worse. I wouldn't bet on either of those things happening. Both those drivers being very consistent all throughout the season, so certainly wouldn't bank on that. But certainly he can become champion, and I'm certain he probably knows about that. So he's going to be thinking that's going to be in the back of his mind all throughout the race. So we could potentially see Schmidl crowned champion at Circuit of the Americas. He could do the Lewis Hamilton and pick up the win in the US. But here's a comparison of 2017 versus 2018. We've talked about in the past how 2018 has not been a fantastic year for Peter Zubek. He's had a bit more trouble with the Mercedes-Benz cars that we've had featured. Maybe he'll do a little bit better in round 9 and onwards once we get into those single-seaters. But you can see the number of podiums last year already at 4. He's only at 1 so far this year. So I'm sure he's going to be hoping for a return to that rostrum. Meanwhile, though, Jan Sikora has had a much better qualifying anyway. Not quite as many top 5s, but certainly more points after the first 7 races. 43 points compared to just 24 that he saw at this point in last year's season. So it definitely has been a year of improvements for Jan Sikora. A good year for him in the Lynx car.
Driver of the day from Germany is the Republic of Gamers car of Martin Stavenko. Very, very well deserved indeed in the red C9. So, as we said before, we are at the Circuit of the Americas. 3.4 miles, 5.5 kilometers, 20 turns, and a lap record by Sebastian Vettel. It is pretty hot, as you can see. 41 degrees in the track, 31 in the air, and there's a bit of a fog out there. Also, 1 penalty for Jan Sikora, 3 places for causing a collision at Sakhir.
And it does get foggy here. I tell you, I was there in 2013, and that is real. That fog is very, very possible. But in qualifying, it was, you guessed it, Michael Schmidl on pole position with a 158.8. Stavenko not far off, less than 4 tenths between the two of them. Then it's Dolezal and Polesny on row 2, Blazek and Honzek, Klebitz and Prohaska. Kostalik, Karl Bashko making his return, makes it into the top 10, and Sikora and Lucas bringing up the rear on row 6. We're on the formation lap now. Really looking forward to this one. Again, it is essentially my home race. I live less than 3 miles, or 3 miles, less than 3 hours from this circuit. Yeah, I wish. I wish I was less than 3 miles from the circuit. That would be incredible. But they're making their way around the reverse turkey corner, as it's known, and into turn 19, which is definitely a corner that is surprisingly difficult. You see drivers getting caught out at turn 19, the penultimate corner, fairly regularly, but making their way down to that final corner, which is also a very tight corner, another corner that is kind of deceptive, and making their way onto the start-finish straight. Again, it is Schmidl on pole with Stavenko alongside him. Not something we've seen enough of recently, if you ask me, but the Schmidl-Stavenko rivalry will definitely be on here today at the Circuit of the Americas. And it looks like we're already almost going 4 wide, heading up the hill into turn 1. And it looks like Stavenko might look up the inside, but no, very late braking from Schmidl. A cutback to the inside for Stavenko, but I don't think he's going to be able to pull ahead. Some more side-by-side. They're actually 3 wide in the background there. I think that was Klebitz, Prohaska, and Kostalik heading into the S's now. And Dolezal in 3rd position and staying ahead of Polesny in the other Predator cars. So it is the Predator cars 1 and 4 as we get into the first lap here. And it's been a nice, clean start, you have to say here, Chris.
Absolutely, you've got to bear in mind that these are the Le Mans spec version of these Mercedes C9s, so they don't have a lot of downforce. Naturally, of course, the drivers are able to tweak the setups of these cars, but the downforce options are limited, and it's a pretty twisty track, as we've already highlighted. But there we can see, oh, bit of a locket there coming into turn 11, but nothing too bad. Smiddle once again starting to stretch his legs at the front there, and it is Stefanko that's in hot pursuit. But look at the gap that's already forming between Stefanko and Dolezal. There is Jaroslav Honzik fighting there in 8th position, trying to make a move on. That's Kostely in the... Oh, that's close. An impact already just coming into the heavy breakers under turn 12. And, oh, that's Bashko that's gone off. So he's come to grief already. I think it was with Robin Lucas towards the tail of the field. So not been an ideal start for him. Here's Blazek in the Legion car. That's Kostely in the Xiaomi Geek car. We saw him fighting with Honzik earlier on, and now he's got that's Prohaska on his tail. So it is going up. Helebits, beg your pardon, on his tail. So that's as we love to see in this series. It's going off everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, at least I thought it was. It certainly looks like the Alza Gaming car of Helebits right behind him, who's been right in the thick of things on this opening lap here. He's actually going to take a peek up the inside. No, not quite. Nothing doing there for him, so he's going to stay behind the Xiaomi Geek car for the moment. Meanwhile, Michael Blazek is on to the back of Polesny. And this was a battle that we saw a lot of last time out in Bahrain. In fact, there was a lot of like kind of top 5 battling going on and in the points, and he takes a lot of inside curve there through turn 1, and then they begin to descend the hill down towards turn 2 and into the S's once again. Again, not much downforce on these cars, and you can see just in the front of the shot there, actually, Stefanko closing up on Schmidl a little bit. That gap between Stefanko and Dolezal is extending a little bit, so it seems that Dolezal may be in a bit of a league of his own at the moment, not quite able to keep up with the 2 MSs in front of him, but certainly pulling away from Polesny behind. And that could possibly also have to do with Polesny coming under attack from Michael Blazek, who again, he is one of the things that needs to happen in order for Schmidl to win. He needs to finish 5th or worse. He does currently find himself in 5th, battling for 4th though as well. So if he were to hang on to that position or improve it, that would stop Michael Schmidl from becoming the 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP champion here at the Circuit of the Americas. But down the very long straight towards turn 12 with the inside line. Can Blazek be late enough on the brakes? No, he can't, interestingly enough. Polesny very late on those brakes, takes a bit of a wide line, and I don't think Blazek's going to be able to go around the outside of 13 and 14 here. That's a very, very difficult place to make an overtake around the outside, and he does indeed slot just behind the Predator blue car of Polesny. Oh, and the Lynx car of Jan Sikra, who, again, as we mentioned earlier, is having a fantastic 2018 season, is trying to improve his position at the cost of Jaroslav Honzik, just ahead of him, who is currently running in 6th position. That's another decent-sized gap, actually, that we're seeing between Blazek and Honzik. So only after a few minutes of racing, we got some pretty decent-sized gaps between 2nd and 3rd, 3rd and 4th, and also between 5th and 6th. Oh, there we go. Blazek now is going to go up the inside through the final corner, and he's up into 4th position. That was a very opportunistic, very well-executed move through the final corner and to start a new lap. He's up into 4th position, and here comes Sikora now. He's on the attack on Honzik. He's going to have to go around the outside. That could put the Xiaomi Geek car actually alongside him there, and Kostelik trying to make a move up on the Lynx car of Jan Sikora. And Sikora not able to get by when it comes to Honzik, and also nearly losing a position to Kostelik as well, too. Meanwhile, up at the front, though, the 2 MSs, Michael Schmidl and Martin Stefanko, are really battling it out after what was what appeared to be a bit of a gap starting to form after that first lap. Because remember, he was 4/10 quicker, nearly 4/10 quicker in qualifying, but it does seem that Stefanko started to close him down here, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Stefanko is really hanging on to the back of Schmidl well. I think Schmidl is used to just getting into the front and just running off. Dolezal has broken free of Blazek and Polesny. That battle hasn't resolved itself either, as we see the 2 MSs screaming down that long back straight, heading towards the heavy braking zone of turn 12. So Stefanko will know to kind of bide his time, you know, not to do anything silly. On board with Slebek, that's 9th position. He is in. That's Kostelik in the Xiaomi Geek car. He's going to do a maneuver on the inside of 12. Oh no!
Polesny.
That's Polesny facing the wrong way and falling through the field. What a great shame for him. What happened there? What a it's so easy to get the car unsettled. We've seen already a few times people having to turn the opposite direction to get the car turned in, fighting the tail of these cars. And turn 12 being such a heavy braking zone, just the tail got away from him.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there was some sort of contact between him and Blazek. Of course, both of them are good racers, and as we've talked about, these cars have very little in the way of downforce, being nearly as old as I am. Nearly, not quite, unfortunately, but yeah, from 1989 these cars harken back to. So, but we're on board with Kodiak. He's running just behind Klebets, who has been moving up due to all of those issues, and you got to, yeah, as you said, you really got to feel for Polesny. He's dropped down out of the points into 11th position behind Karl Bashko, who is one of the Czech commentators, of course. So we'll be secretly rooting for him, and good to see him back up into the points, and also just, you know, on pace, because I mean these are incredibly talented drivers that have put in a lot of practice and stuff. So for someone to just jump in and be on the same pace as them, that is truly impressive, especially if he's a commentator. You can really see, though, Chris, as I'm watching that onboard through the S's, you can see the understeer really kick in kind of mid-corner. They turn in initially and everything seems okay, and then it's just a wash of understeer.
Yeah, absolutely, and Koja is really not somewhere you want steering trouble
Right.
Of any description, under or oversteer. And again, respect to Karl Bashko to just jump in. That's probably one of the hardest circuits on the calendar.
And probably the harder car, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the single-seaters, which we will be getting back into on the next race, this is the last time we will see these beautiful C9s. Yeah, they, of course, as we mentioned, are pretty slippery. The GT3s are very modern cars, so they've got some more tools to keep them under control. So yeah, absolute respect to Karl Bashko for keeping it good and true after being out the lip. Oh, what a lovely switch back there for Slebek on the inside of Jan Sikora. What a beautiful move. The outside. Whoa! Whoa, goodness me. Sikora was not pleased about that in the lead car. And now another switchback from Slebek. He's now going to be the outside for 17 and 18. That's going to give the advantage back to the lead car. Running a little bit wide, but not off the road. And there's the Xiaomi geek of Kodiak. And also Prohaska, and I think Bashko's not far off the back. Oops, and that's the Lynx car getting a little bit crossed up. Jan Sikora has finally had to concede that 6th position. Wow, that was a lovely sequence of events there, initiated by Slebek, and that lovely undercut there.
Absolutely love that. That was fantastic wheel-to-wheel racing. To see Klebets around the outside through turns 17 and 18, and to make the pass as well, too, because, of course, he got the inside line for 19 and 20. I don't even think they were side-by-side at that point through 20, but fantastic stuff. He's definitely a nominee for Driver of the Day, in my opinion, after that one. Speaking of which, you can vote for your Driver of the Day at virtualgp.eu/Driver of the Day. And send your votes in before the next round. So make sure you guys head over there, and you can also be a part of the prediction game and win the Mercedes-Benz Black Edition watches. You can do that also at virtualgp.eu/competition. And that is really impressive stuff. As I said, really enjoyed that one from Klebets. In fact, my hair was standing up on that. That was great. Wheel-to-wheel racing. That's what it's all about, in my opinion. And hopefully we'll get a little bit of that wheel-to-wheel racing between these two guys. That's what everybody really wants to see. Let's be honest. We want to see that side by side.
Oh, no!
Another spinner. This time it's Prohaska in the Vodafone car. I think that's going to drop him down to 10th. No, that's actually dropped him right down to last. Yeah, so unfortunately for him, the grid is just that compacted. The competition is so tight here today at Circuit of the Americas that it's dropped him right down to last. I don't think anybody has taken on any sort of major damage, but we're definitely seeing that back end kick out quite a bit.
Yeah, we haven't seen anybody come into the pits yet, so exactly as you said, Justin. Oh, wow, and look at the tail of that advanced car. That's Blazko. Yeah. But you see how much they're having to fight these cars. But also, we've seen several spins already, and we're, only on lap 6. And we didn't see anything like this for quite a number of rounds. So early in the first race of these cars, yeah, there was quite a few problems as people were getting used to them, but we haven't seen this many issues for quite a number of rounds now. But also, the last time we saw these two nailed to one another was Brands Hatch, and that's a notoriously difficult track to overtake on no major braking zones. Kota has several major braking zones, so this is really going to test how well Schmidl can defend, because it's been a few rounds since he's had to defend from anybody. He's had a lot of fresh air behind him for a lot of his races recently. So yes, Stefanko, I would imagine, is really enjoying being able to pile the pressure on Schmidl. It does look like at the moment Schmidl's got no answer, and the pair of them are broken away by around about 6 seconds from Dolezal, who in himself is roughly the same between himself and Blaszczak. Now looking at Kostalik in the Xiaomi Geek car on the back of Jan Sikora. So since Sikora and Schlebeck had that lovely swapping around a position, Schlebeck has broken away a little bit, 1.5 seconds between the Alza Gaming car and the Lynx car. But Kostalik now piling the pressure on. Of course, if they tangle up too much, that's Blaszczak and Polesny, I think, shortly behind them as well.
Yeah, and Kostulik as well was another person, because we were talking about Jan Sikora, who's having a fantastic 2018 compared to 2017, and Kostulik's another one of those. He joined late in the season in 2017 and wasn't quite on the pace, but I mean that's what you would expect, again, with these extremely talented and competitive drivers that we see in Virtual GP. But he's done a fantastic job this season. He's in the top 10 at the moment, plenty of points on the board as well too. And we just see this backward shot, lovely shot actually, of the rear wing of Schmidl with Stefanko, I mean, nearly tucked underneath it as they head through the penultimate corner and down towards the final corner now. But I just wonder if maybe some of the pressure has been lifted off of Stefanko, just purely because he's actually really no longer in the championship hunt as far as the Drivers' Championship. There's really nothing that he can do. He's unfortunately just not had the 2018 season that he would have wanted, but I wonder if that's just made a bit of a mental change for him, you know, and that this is all just for fun, or rather, this is for the Haas F1 team, for the F1 Esports. Maybe he wants to show them who's the king of that team. Because of course Schmidl and Stefanko both heading to the F1 Esports with the Haas team, so I would imagine that all of the Haas guys will be watching this, wanting to see who's going to come out on top. But let's see who's going to come out on top between Prohaska and Lucas. Of course, Prohaska had that spin not that long ago, and he is very late on the brakes into turn 1. He's going to go a bit deep, but he will have the inside line for turn 2 as Lucas comes back at him just a little bit in that Sandisk car. But no, the Vodafone car is going to stay ahead as they enter the S's. A decent-sized gap up ahead between Prohaska and Polesny. Everybody is on the medium tires. We haven't really mentioned that, but everybody is on the medium tires. That definitely seems to be the favorite of most of the drivers. We did see a little bit of the softs used last round. If my memory serves correctly, I think Polesny threw on a set of the softs later in the race and tried to make something happen there. So we could see a bit of strategy variation at Circuit of the Americas with just under half an hour remaining in this race, a little over 10 minutes to run. But here we go between Kostulik and Sikora. Again, the two drivers I was talking about who maybe didn't have the best 2017 season, but here they are battling for 7th. Kostulik, with that speed, the slipstream, he's going to go around the outside here, which I think is actually the better line. But yeah, a bit of contact there. And I think he is going to lose out. Yeah, not quite side by side, heading into the double right-handers of 13 and 14. Moving back ahead with Schmidl and Stefanko, though, as they make their way through the penultimate corner and past the pit entrance and into the final corner to start yet another lap. And Stefanko is still right on the back of the man who is trying to win the 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP Championship here today at Circuit of the Americas. But remember, Michael Blaszczak needs to finish lower than 5th, and Peter Dolezal needs to finish lower than 8th. It doesn't look like either of those things are going to happen.
Well, indeed, but you never know. We've seen several mishaps from other drivers that have had very few mistakes as the season has progressed. But yeah, Stefanko has had a very, very mixed season. He's been second to the man ahead of him 3 times already in this season, for goodness sake, of Bahrain and also Brands. He had that horrible spin at Spa that sadly saw him retire from the race. So it's been a very up and down season. Oh, what might have been had he had some more luck in other places. He could have been right there with Schmidl pushing him to the end of the season, but as it is, he is certainly pushing him through the twists and turns here at Kota. I'm sure the Haas team are going to be quite happy with the fact that their drivers are at the moment quite comfortably in the lead of the team's home race. I wonder if it's something about black and red cars. It seems to give these two certainly a bit of extra oomph there. So on they go then, heading down towards turn 12 once again. And interestingly, Stefanko isn't doing what I rather expected. He isn't sort of trying to position his car in the mirrors. He's not trying to goad Smiddle into a late braking or late defensive maneuver. He's not doing any of that. He's simply holding station. So he could be just kind of biding his time, maybe waiting for...
Oh, that's a line.
That's an unusual line. I'm not sure it's the fastest one to do, but it didn't sort of cost him a great deal. He was straight back on it. But it does seem like Stefanko's biding his time. We're not seeing any major... Again, just look how smooth Stefanko is with the wheels in this particular shot. We're not seeing lots of massive snap oversteers. There's been a few, but not many. We're seeing more from other people. So it just seems to be kind of lying in wait at the moment, which is an interesting tactic to play against someone. Oh, there's a snap oversteer, just as I say that. But it's an interesting tactic to play against someone like Michael Smiddle.
Yeah, I mean, really both of these guys are not super aggressive drivers, which is possibly part of the reason they've been so successful in Virtual GP, because, of course, these guys are both champions in Virtual GP, with Stefanko picking it up last year in 2017 at the final round as well, no less, at Suzuka, an incredible race, which if you guys haven't seen that one, I highly recommend going back and watching that. Truly incredible stuff at Suzuka last round, and we're going to be ending this year's festivities as well at Suzuka. So looking forward to heading back to the site of that incredible race that we saw in 2017. Having a look at Carl Bashko, he is up in 9th position at the moment, and doing well, running in the points, and in that car. So doing well as we move back on board with Stefanko as they're coming down the main DRS straight. Of course, no DRS with it. Not like these cars need DRS. They might actually take off if you remove the wing and just go airborne. But yeah, he doesn't quite have the straight line speed. He's not. Yeah, they're already into the braking zone. It looks like they break around the 150-meter board into turn 12. Incredibly high speed, of course, a very, very long back straight, as we see Kostuluk and Sikora coming onto said straight now. Kostuluk with a bit of a twitch, a bit of wheel spin, it seems, coming out of that turn 11 hairpin. We'll see if the slipstream is going to be enough. He's several car lengths back already, and I think, yeah, they're fairly close to the braking zone already, so Kostuluk is going to have to lay in wait. Meanwhile, Bashko is actually right behind them. I didn't realize just how close Bashko was to this battle for 7th position, so go on Carl Bashko. Not only is he running in a multiple points paying position, but he's actually not far off the battle for 7th. And we've actually got the leaders into the pits already with less than 24 minutes remaining. So that's before the halfway point. Schmidl and Stefanko both in, both finding... Oh no, that looked like reverse. Yeah, you can see the shake of the head from Stefanko. I think he actually needed to engage reverse in the pit lane. Their pit boxes were right next to one another, and I wonder if that maybe played some sort of factor, but it looks like Kostuluk versus Sikora, that battle is going to get put on hold as the Lynx car peels off into the pits at the end of that lap as well, too. And yeah, so it looks like we got 3 cars into the pits, and the 2 leaders are away just as Sikora is finding his pit box, and it doesn't look like they're going to come out with too much traffic. No, I'm not seeing any traffic behind them, really. That has dropped them right down, though, so if the cars ahead of them don't start pitting relatively soon, we could see Schmidl and Stefanko getting affected by cars that have not pit yet, which isn't something we've seen too much this year. No, they tend to time themselves fairly well, but again, Schmidl normally builds up that big lead, so whether he does come out of traffic or not, he's simply known that the traffic ahead of him has had to pit, so he hasn't had a great deal to worry about. And again, these two did have, you know, a fairly decent lead over the man that now leads, Peter Dolezal, in the Seco Plus car. Someone we have actually lost, I believe, is Polesny. Oh, we had that spin earlier, of course.
Wojtek Polesny, yes. So that's actually something we've had very little of in this season, is retirements, and sadly,
yes,
yeah, we have lost Wojtek Polesny from the race as Robin Newton comes back out then in the Sandis car after his stop. So yeah, I mean, Schmidl's got, you know, another 7 seconds at least down the road before he's got any kind of traffic. Stefanko did lose out a little bit in the pit stop, only by about a second or so. But with the pace that we've seen previously, I'm a little surprised. I thought Stefanko was actually I was saying he was laying in wait. I wonder whether he was actually going to do another lap after Schmidl had come in to try and do the overcut, but he opted, and it looked like the way that he was coming into the pits, it looked like a little bit of a last-minute thing to just follow unless he just got so transfixed on the tail of the car ahead, which can happen. Tracks like Canada, for instance, it's so easy to do that. Oh, it's Honda coming in. I thought for a second, I stopped dead in my tracks as I thought that was actually Stefanko coming in again. That's my mistake. That's nothing to do with that. It's Honda coming in. So, yeah, tracks like Canada, where the pit lane filters straight off of a very long straight,
right.
It's very easy just to focus so much on the car ahead of you because you don't want to slam into the back of them, of course. If they go off into the pit lane, it's very easy just to follow suit. So there may have been an element of that. Obviously, only Stefanko would know that, but they will head back up to the top. Interestingly, Dolezal is the only one that hasn't come in.
Yeah.
So, big group of people, Basko, Kosovic, Slebek, Honzik, and Blazek all in. Interesting that Dolezal has carried on, because he's been on his own, so he hasn't had the benefit of Slipstream to help with tyre wear or anything like that. So, interesting, but why not? Got nothing to lose.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think he ended up going long in his stint last time in Bahrain as well too, under the lights of Sakir. So it seems that maybe is a little bit of his MO. And as we were saying earlier, certainly he was in clean air, very clean air. I mean, he was a few seconds off the leaders and also a few seconds ahead of the people that were just outside the podium position. So yeah, his tires may just be that little bit healthier. We are right around the halfway point of the race now, though. So if he's looking to fit another set of the mediums, however, he could gamble it a little bit because again, he did have a big gap down to the other car. The Blazek, I believe, was the car behind him, and he did have a pretty healthy gap down to him. So if Dolezal's tires are feeling good, and he's feeling a little saucy and maybe wants to fit a set of softs at the end, maybe that will allow him to close up to Schmidl and Stefanko, who are now separated once again by about 1 second. And here we go. Bashko is on the back of Kostulik. I'm loving seeing Bashko going on the attack here, heading down the main straight, down towards turn 12. What can the Avaskar do? And is he going to be late enough on it? No, he's a number of car lengths back as they get into the braking zone. Oh, he does go a bit deep there into turn 12, and he's running pretty close as well to that Xiaomi Geek car. So we might see an overtake between the Avaskar and the Xiaomi Geek car, and of course Sikora as well. Just a few seconds up the road, we just got a peek of him going through turns 15 and 16, right as those guys were coming out of 14. So he's really not too far off. And that 1 second or so that Stefanko lost in the pits has already been erased, and it is now again it's actually less than a second now between Schmidl and Stefanko, and Bashko as well on straight onto the back of Kostulik. This is another overtaking. We mentioned there's multiple overtaking locations at Circuit of the Americas, and certainly turn 1 is one of those because it's so wide. You have so many different line options, but we've seen a lot of twitching on the back end coming out of that final corner. It's a deceptively slow corner, and of course these cars, it can be very, very difficult to get the power down with all the lack of driver aids and the just immense amount of power coming out of the huge turbo in this Mercedes-Benz C9. So Bashko does stay behind for the moment. Again, we are down to just 11 cars running. And so it's Lucas at the back at the moment, Prohaska in the final points-paying position, and then here we see the battle for 8th between Kostulik and Bashko. Again, Bashko filling in for today and doing a fantastic job, you have to say. Also want to mention, of course, our English broadcast partner, the Pit Crew Online. You can head over to thepitcrewonline.net and see what they got going on, some fantastic articles and stuff like that. So make sure you guys check out that. And yeah, really, really good race here, and I'm loving seeing, in particular, and there it is, Dolezal into the pits. So I wonder, though, with 17.5 minutes plus 1 lap, if he's really going to fit a set of softs. Maybe he's just going to hope for having healthier tires, a healthier set of mediums around with the cars around him, and hope that maybe that will be enough in order to bring him closer to the front pair. Oh, look, a bit of a lockup there for Bashko, actually, in the Avaskar. And here we go with the de facto leaders of the race, Schmidl and Stefanko, through the final corner. Stefanko is decidedly closer this time around than he was last time, about 3 car lengths between them as they head down the pit straight, and Dolezal is still in the pits, still stationary, so they do easily get past him. I was wondering whether or not what sort of laps maybe he was putting in while they were in the pits and in the back of the behind everybody else. But there he is. He comes out of the pits, and it is very comfortably in 3rd position.
Very much so. It's good. waiting for the time to kind of settle down. So it's in the region of between 8 and 10 seconds that Dolezal has over Blazek. Certainly not something that Smidl has over Stefanko. We haven't seen another name on the fastest lap board for quite some time. It's Stefanko who's put his name there twice in 2 consecutive laps since their pit stop. Stefanko wants to get this done now. Exactly as you said, we're in the latter half of the race now. Still time to do it. Ooh, a little deep there into 11, but nothing too bad. Coming back to what I was saying earlier about how smooth Stefanko is with how well he's holding the car. He's not having to fight it by any degree. Carl Basco was kind of the opposite. It looked like he was really having to fight the thing to get it through the S's. So, you know, 2 very big parallels. And still, Bashko is in the point and fighting for another position. That just really goes to show how well Carl Bashko is taking this kind of trial by fire of one of the hardest cars and one of the hardest tracks without prior practice to it for a whole season.
Oh,
was that? I was going to say, is that Stefanko? Oh, is this a possible move for the lead? Is Smidl finally under pressure for the end? It did look like Smidl really had to defend very hard there from Stefanko, which is a sentence we haven't said for quite a long time. Very, very close then coming through the final turns. Yeah, Smidl really had no either. Smidl is just kind of biding his time, knowing he doesn't have to do anything silly to secure the championship. Of course, you know, we mentioned earlier the conditions that have to be the case. Blazek is too high and Dolezal is certainly too high. So at the moment, Smidl won't take the championship, but still, Smidl doesn't want to be doing anything to send him off into the dust. So with Stefanko really piling on the pressure, we may well see a change of lead post-pit stop for the first time this season.
That was a strange one. I mean, Schmidl was very, very slow coming out of turn 16. I mean, you saw Stefanko ran straight into the back of him. So I'm not sure if that was a turbo setting issue, because again, for those of you that might be new to these Mercedes C9s, the drivers do have a setting in the car where they can change the boost level of the turbo. And actually, Polesny is back out. That's very interesting. He is 6 laps down, but, you know, never give up is clearly something he has taken to heart, and he is back out on circuit. Lovely to see. Great to see the Predator Blue car rejoining the action, albeit 6 laps down, but so clearly maybe, I think maybe we commentator cursed him when we said that nobody had any damage yet, so apologies to Polesny if that is the case. Oh, but here we go. Stefanko around the outside. Schmidl going a bit defensive into turn 12, and it looks like he is going to actually be able to take the apex there and stay ahead of Stefanko. But this battle is definitely spicing up for the lead of this race for the 8th round of the 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP Championship. And the championship leader, the only man to win a race in 2018, is defending with all of his talent, with Martin Stefanko right behind him. And again, Stefanko just seems much more comfortable through this kind of sector 3, this tail end of the lap. There doesn't seem to be much he can do at the start of the lap, but see, he's nearly practically pushing the Predator red car out of turns 17 and 18 into turn 19. There we go. Schmidl gives himself a wee bit of breathing room there. And meanwhile, at the back, Hontek has closed right up to the back of Blazek. So this is for 4th position, just outside the podium places. Again, Dolezal has a commanding lead over the rest of the field with over 15 seconds, actually, between Dolezal and Blazek at the moment. And it seems that Stefanko not able to make anything happen into turn 1, and surely he won't get another opportunity into turn 11. Technically, we don't see a ton of overtakes into the turn 11 hairpin just before the long straight. However, it is certainly a possibility. This is a great camera angle, just seeing them going over those bumps, just taking those apexes as best they can. Stefanko takes a slightly wider line, maybe just trying to get as much downforce as he possibly can. It's because it's got to be difficult following a car this close. I mean, he's less than a car length behind. You can actually see the front bumper underneath the wing, so that's how you know he is very close in that Republic of Gamers car. Down the hill they go into that turn 11 hairpin, and we'll see if he can. The exit out of this hairpin is going to be very important, Chris.
I think Stefanko's running a little bit more wing than Smidl. The reason why it makes me think that is we've just witnessed by this brilliant camera angle how Stefanko was able to just close right back in. And this is, of course, where normally a higher downforce would hurt, because he's sat in the slipstream. So he's able to keep right with Smidl at the yeah, keep right with Smiddle at the point where Smiddle should be strongest. So that's how Stefanko is really keeping on top of the Predator red car at the moment. And here is where he's wanting to use that extra downforce. We know how difficult it is, and again, he's had to take a different line. We saw this exactly the same last lap, where he's having to take more of evasive maneuvers through that turn 13-14 to prevent banging into the back of Smiddle, because Smiddle obviously taking the normal racing line, but he's having to be more defensive. We've seen Stefanko really piling the pressure on and using his car brilliantly well in the slipstream to keep up.
And this is what we've been missing all season long. I mean, again, Smiddle has, when he has come under attack, it has typically been from Martin Stefanko. Stefanko, again, has just had awful luck in 2018. And here we see again Smiddle going defensive into turn 1. He's not going to lose too much time. As we mentioned earlier, it's a very, very wide corner, so going defensive through turn 1 really isn't going to lose him all that much time. And then after turn 1, you have a long series of corners where overtaking is just not possible, especially when you have drivers that are this close in pace. I mean, these guys are separated by tenths, maybe hundredths of a second when it comes to the previous lap. And indeed, you can actually see at the bottom of the screen, it is just under 1/10 of a second between the two of them. So in this sector of the circuit where it's just corner after corner after corner, I mean, it's just absolutely relentless the way the corners come at you, and there's just no way by unless Smiddle makes some sort of mistake, which I don't think anybody is expecting Smiddle to make a mistake. Stefanko as well probably does not expect a mistake there. Let's see if he can get a good exit out of turn 11. No, it seems that he had just a little moment where he wasn't sure if he could get on the throttle there, and I think Smiddle's probably going to be safe on the run down towards turn 12, because of course if Stefanko is running that higher downforce, then that means it's going to be that much more difficult to actually make the overtake on the long straight. So here we go in the battle for 4th position. Hansik's another driver that really hasn't had a season as good as he would have liked. 2017 certainly was a bit more successful for Hansik, but he is now battling with Blazek, who is in 4th position, just outside the podium positions. As we mentioned before, Dolezal just running away with that final podium position, looking very comfortable. It's been an incredible season for Peter Dolezal, you have to say, and maybe not quite as incredible as Michael Schmidl's season, but certainly Dolezal has been a name that we have mentioned a number of times. A bit of a twitch through the penultimate quarter there for Stefanko. Let's see if he can set up a good exit out of this final corner. It looks like he has done that, actually. Just a couple of car lengths between the two of them as they start another lap. Less than 9 minutes remaining, plus one more lap as they climb the hill once again and into the braking zone of turn 1. And no, Stefanko's not able to make anything happen here. And curiously, Schmidl didn't feel the need to go defensive. So I wonder if Schmidl realizes that Stefanko just doesn't have the straight line speed. Maybe he's realized that Martin's just not planning to do a dive bomb. Again, these are both non-aggressive, very mature drivers with lots of respect for one another, so maybe he's just playing it a little bit more on the edge here, and maybe also it's a case of Schmidl realizing that Stefanko is not his main rival in the championship. You know, maybe he's on autopilot and, oh, Stefanko's behind me, I need to defend with all my might, and maybe now in the tail end of this race it's finally settling in for him that actually Stefanko's really not the man he needs to worry about. It's actually Peter Dolezal in the championship that he would need to worry about, and he's got a pretty comfortable lead over Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've seen quite a few times that rear-facing camera. I wonder if Michael Schmidl's kind of, we've seen him kind of run off into the distance. He's making the race harder for himself. Maybe he is actually looking backwards at the same time. Oh, that looked a little closer from Stefanko. Looks like he was trying to brake a little later, but was following the same line. So that was almost an impact between the two. But I think even Michael Schmidl, even he must be feeling this. He's usually so calm and collected, you never normally see him under pressure. Even he must be feeling this. This is very much reminiscent of Brands Hatch. These two just so close all race long. And again, Stefanko's staying much closer to the apex lines, which again, if he is running higher downforce, will be easier for him to do. But you're just seeing the tail kick out. Remember, it is quite hot. It's 40-degree track temperature, so these medium tyres I mean, they'll do half a race quite comfortably, but if they're spinning up the wheels too much, and they will be kicking the tails out. Yeah, that is indeed. And look, you see Smiddle thinking about taking to the inside line very early. Stefanko staying in the slipstream. He's going to have a look at the inside of turn 1. Oh, big dive. Can he get it slowed down? No, Smiddle is going to dive back in. I think Stefanko realised he'd overdone a bit of a lockup then, and Smiddle was able to cut back underneath to resume the lead. So for a brief moment, the lead changed hands, but that is a very big reminder to Smiddle. You cannot relax. I've done it once, I can do it again.
Yeah, this is incredible stuff. As you said, we did finally see a change for the lead. It was the briefest of lead changes, but it happened, and we can't deny it. That was fantastic, and this is sort of, you know, coming into the 2018 season, I think this is what we were sort of expecting every single race, was the Stefanko versus Smiddle thing. But the dynamicness of the 2018 season, it's just been all over the place with the various cars, and I don't think that line has worked out very well through the hairpin for Stefanko. No. He tried something different with just under 6 minutes remaining. It hasn't quite worked out for him there. However, worth remembering that Sector 3 is actually the place where it seems that Stefanko closes up the most, so I don't think he's going to lose too much as a result of that. He should close in pretty comfortably through 13 and 14, 15, 16, and even into 17 and 18 as well, where he has seemed absolutely mega. I mean, we've seen Smiddle taking strange lines into 15 and 16, which is what they're heading into now, and we've seen Stefanko trying something different. He's a little bit further back this time, so he doesn't have to take an alternate line this time. He's just going to follow the Acer Predator red car through turn 16 into 17 and 18, and again, he's just holding that slightly tighter line, just trying to get his aerodynamics working, because of course it doesn't work so well when you're running this close to a Mercedes-Benz C9 with that big giant wing on the back of it. Into the final corner they go once again with 5 minutes plus 1 lap still to go here at the Circuit of the Americas for round 8 of the 2018 Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP season. And Michael Smiddle, it does appear, you have to say, is probably not going to get the win here, because again, Dolezal comfortably in third. Blazek is in fourth. I wouldn't call it comfortable though, because Hansik's right behind him, and I think that was Polesny. That was Polesny, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I don't know if that was him just aggressively getting out of the way, or if he's had another spin there. He did stay nicely out of the way. Oh, a lovely shot of the S's here.
Oh, it's Hansik.
And back on board. Yeah, back on board with the battle for fourth. As I mentioned before, it's definitely not comfortable for Blazek, is it?
No, he's having to work much, much harder to keep that chasing Jaroslav Hansik behind him, who was recently
oh, goodness.
Oh, look at that. Nice move on the inside of turn 3. But, oh, what a great drive by the Legion car of Blazek to maintain that position. Hansik is going to have to bide his time again, but they haven't got many laps left. There's only going to be 2 laps left, or there or thereabouts by this stage, 3 at absolute most. So Jaroslav Hansik is going to have to bide his time. He was recently crowned GT3 champion at Apex Online Racing, so for the 2nd time in a row. So he is an absolutely phenomenal driver, but he hasn't had the best of luck this season. Hasn't had the best season at VGP, but even still, he is having a heck of a race here against. Oh, you heard the tyres lock up. Then even he had to really think about that one. That was nearly a collision to the back of the Legion car. And look at the drive that Blazek had from the exit of 11. But all eyes once again on this lead battle. They will cross the line with enough time for a couple more laps, so it is going to be down to the wire. He has been staring at that rear wing all season long, and he doesn't want another 2 on his score sheet. Stefanko wants that top spot.
Yeah, he's got a good run out of that final corner, so we'll see if he's trying to set him up. He's a little bit further back compared to the lap that we saw him actually with that dive bomb. I don't think we're going to see a dive bomb here. He does move out of the slipstream there. I think that's more so just to help him with the braking, which, of course, the layout of turn 1 also helps with the braking as you're going up the hill. So you can brake a lot later than you would normally for that kind of corner, just purely because you're going uphill, and you can really just feel that car compress down into the ground as you just lay into the brakes, and it's a little bit more difficult to lock up at that sort of corner. So Stefanko wasn't close enough to actually pull alongside. He couldn't try the dive bomb, but he is decidedly closer this time as they make their way through the lefts of turn 9 and then into turn 10 down the hill into the turn 11 hairpin, which again is a pretty good overtaking location, but not if you're this close in pace. And you can see a bit of a wider line for Martin Stefanko. He's going to try and get a good run through that final corner, which is going to be his best opportunity, honestly, to try and make the overtake on Schmidl. We do suspect that Schmidl is running lower downforce, which is possibly just making it that much more difficult for Stefanko to get the overtake done. He's very quick through the corners. We can see how he closes up on Schmidl through Sector 1 and through Sector 3 as well, too. But Sector 2, unfortunately, he just doesn't have that straight line speed to pull alongside, and it's just not working out for him, and there's not much time left as well. So I think they're going to finish this lap, then they're going to have one more, and then they're going to have one more. So 2 more laps after this one is completed, because, yeah, they're definitely going to cross the finish line in less than a minute and 13 seconds here. So Stefanko just right up to the back of Schmidl. Dolezal, you have to say, is actually closing in, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's actually closing in on this battle. I don't think there's enough racing left for him to actually close in enough to even think about having an overtake, but he has been closing in, it seems, and possibly due to the battling that they've had. And again, Stefanko is very close coming out of that final corner, but again, I'm not sure if he's going to be close enough to make a move into turn 1. Will Schmidl go defensive as they get up the hill? They've actually got a back marker as well up ahead. It'd be very interesting to see if that played anything into it. I think it was 2012 where with Vettel and Hamilton, where a back marker actually ended up more or less handing that first place to Lewis Hamilton, and I wonder if we'll see anything like that in the closing stages of this race at Circuit of the Americas. We are just about to the end of the timer, so they will get one more lap after this one as Blazek and Hanzik cross the line to start their penultimate lap, and heading down towards turn 1, it looks like Hanzik is not going to be close enough to make anything happen here. So that battle for 4th position will continue. Oh god, he is very close though. Took a much tighter apex compared to the Lenovo Legion car of Michael Blazek. So Jaroslav Hanzik is pushing hard.
Well, that was a little close, but yeah, the penultimate flag will be waiting then for these two. I wonder whether Stefanko's actually burned the best out of his tyres, but he is getting a decent amount of slipstream. Look how early Schmidl committed to that defensive line. He's going to push Stefanko to the outside, but he's going to slow that one down. I think is that Robin Lucas just ahead of them?
I think it might be.
Yeah, that's the Sandisk car, so that is Lucas. So he should have enough room to get out of the way, and there he does. Is that going to put Schmidl off his stride? Not particularly. So yeah, the Sandisk car does indeed get out of the way without disrupting the lead battle. But I wonder whether Stefanko's just lost the edge on those tyres. We know that the medium tyres will last the distance, but of course he's been in that dirty air all race long. His car is going to slide around more if he's relied more on the downforce. He's probably lent on those tyres a little bit more than Schmidl has. But the evidence seems to be here when Schmidl gets a great drive. He opens that gap up to kind of 5, 6, 7 tenths. Although this time it doesn't seem to be into the 4 tenths. Now we're on the final lap, but again it's just a little bit too far for Stefanko to do anything about it. His next opportunity generally is going to be either in the braking zone of 11, which he could possibly do if Schmidl makes a mistake, and he hasn't done one of those in a very long time, or possibly into 12. But again, 12, just as we've kind of seen, it relies on a bad drive from 11 for Schmidl, and we just haven't seen it so far. But you never know, just a few more miles to go.
And the difference in time from the last lap between Schmidl and Stefanko is 5 thousandths of a second. 5 thousandths of a second. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The difference in talent between these drivers is almost nothing. I mean, they're so extremely similarly paced, and this is the all-important corner. This is all or nothing, and he does seem to get a good run, actually, out of that turn 11 hairpin. Let's see if he can pick up enough of a slipstream. Schmidl is still kind of pulling away. It's about 3 tenths between them. Now it's starting to come down. Stefanko is getting closer and closer. We're almost into the braking zone, though. Schmidl does go defensive into the turn 12 corner, but it doesn't look like Stefanko is going to be late enough on the brakes. There are still about 7 corners or so for these guys, but not really any overtaking locations, and it doesn't look like any sort of traffic in the immediate vicinity as well, too. Stefanko with an aggressive line heading into turn 15, but it's not going to work out for him. hasn't hindered his exit coming out of 16 either, though, as they head into the reverse turkey corner of turns 17 and 18. This, of course, is one of the parts where Stefanko has definitely been stronger, just holding that tighter line compared to Schmidl. Into the penultimate corner now on the final lap. It's going to be the checkered flag this time by for Michael Schmidl, and will he make it? 8 wins out of 8. He is the man that cannot be stopped in 2018 in the Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP season, and there it is. And you can see the elation from Michael Schmidl, the frustration from Martin Stefanko as he strokes his beard. He gives him the thumbs up as well, because these guys, again, they're not just competitors. Oh, and Blazek, though, has had a spin, and it looks like Hanzik is going to take that 4th place position, but is he slowing down? He is. He is, so it looks like Hanzik maybe was to blame for that spin, and he is going to let Blazek back through, because of course Hanzik is he's a real competitor. He's a good sportsman, and he's going to let that Lenovo Legion car back into 4th position rather than taking it to the stewards or anything. You can see Peter Dolezal as well. He's got to be a little exhausted after that race. I imagine all 12 of our drivers are more than a little exhausted. You can see working the wheel there as they get across the line. Karl Bashko, though, in the end, in 8th position. I got to give a round of applause to our fellow commentator. That's a really well done race for Karl Bashko, and again, filling in the points as well, too. So let's take a look at the final results in Austin. It was Schmidl by the smallest of margins. Stefanko does pick up fastest lap, though, and finishes less than half a second. Peter Dolezal picks up another podium with Blazek in 4th position. Hanzik right behind in 5th after a move that didn't quite work out. Klebitz and Kostulik getting into the points. Very good race for those guys, actually, too. A bit quieter of a race. Karl Bashko, as we mentioned, in 8th position. Sikora and Prohaska bringing up the rear in the top 10.
So this is how the championship stands, and Schmidl still dominating the way on $204, all second 111. Blazek just 10 points back. Stefanko in 4th with 95. Slebek 5, Pelesny 6, Hanzik 7, Sikora 8, Zubik 9, Kostulik 10, Prohaska 11, and Robin Lucas and Sandis car is still struggling at the tail of the field.
You know, I was struggling immediately after the first corner because we had a little contact with Martin, but it wasn't his fault. So yeah, after that the car was damaged at the back. So yeah, but you know, it was quite enjoyable one because we had a nice fight during the whole race, so it was good. It's great for the show, great for the viewers. So yeah, I enjoyed that, and it was kind of a little bit of throwback to the last season. But you know, I was fighting like a lion every corner because I was trying to keep him behind me, and it worked out, and it's amazing.
It was a very good race. Obviously, I worked really hard, not only on my driving, but a lot on the setup as well. The improvements really shown in the race because I found a lot of time in the setup there. So it's a shame that I didn't get pole. Even if I would have gotten all the sectors together, I would still be like a 10 behind in qualifying. So Peter was maximum in qualifying. And the start wasn't really ideal. Michael had a really good start, so he held on to P1. And from then on, he just defended perfectly. I tried a couple of times to overtake him. My fastest lap was 6/10 faster than his, so it just shows that my pace was much better in the race. It's a lot of positives for me to take into the final part of this championship, and as well it shows that if you work really hard and if you start practicing from day one, then it's going to really improve your results as well. So I'm going to keep working hard. Yeah, we'll see how the final part of the championship is gonna play out.
I'm happy that I was third. I don't mind that I wasn't able to fight for the second and first place because I was slower than these aliens. So I'm happy that without problems I was third. I enjoyed prototypes. It was the best cars in the season, I think. Next will be GT3 cars, and Formula cars are the worst for me, so we will see.
And here is your podium at Circuit of the Americas. Schmidl takes the win, followed by his F1 Esports teammate Martin Stefanko. And it's another podium for the second place man in the championship, Peter Dolezal. Thank you so much for joining me, Chris.
Always a great pleasure, and I look forward to the next one.
And thanks, of course, to the entire VGP team and all of our sponsors. We'll see you next time for the first race in the single-seaters from Silverstone. Goodbye.